I was a park ranger at Yellowstone National Park, responsible for monitoring and tracking the wildlife in the forest. It was a beautiful autumn evening, and the woods were bathed in a warm golden light. As I made my way through the dense forest, I couldn't help but marvel at the beauty of the scenery. But my peaceful walk was soon interrupted by a strange feeling. The air grew thick, and the woods fell silent. It was as if the forest itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. That's when I heard the first growl. I turned around to see a massive grizzly bear, its eyes fixated on me. My heart pounded in my chest as I reached for my bear spray, only to realize it was empty. The bear continued to stalk me, its low growls filling the forest. But it wasn't just following me, it was tracking me with an unnerving intelligence. It seemed to anticipate my every move, always one step ahead of me. I tried to retreat, but it was no use. The bear was always there, lurking just beyond the tree line, watching me with a predatory gaze. I knew that this was not a normal bear. There was something off about it, something that I couldn't quite put my finger on. As the sun began to set, the forest grew darker, and the air grew thick with an ominous presence. I could sense that I was not alone, that something else was out there, something that I couldn't see. The bear continued to track me, its growls growing louder and more menacing. But just when I thought it was the end, the bear disappeared into thin air. I was left alone in the dark forest, shaking and confused. As I made my way back to the park ranger station, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had encountered something paranormal, something beyond my comprehension. The more I thought about it, the more convinced I became that the bear was not just an animal, but something more. Over the next few weeks, strange things began to happen in the forest. Visitors reported seeing shadowy figures lurking in the trees, and some claimed to hear strange voices whispering in the wind. But it wasn't until one night when I was patrolling the forest that I finally encountered the source of the strange occurrences. As I made my way through the woods, I heard a low growl and turned around to see the same grizzly bear from before, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. But this time, it was not alone. There were other shadowy figures lurking in the trees, watching me with a predatory gaze. I realized then that I was not just being tracked by a bear, but by something much more sinister. The forest had always been a place of beauty and wonder, but now it seemed to hold a dark secret, something beyond my understanding. As I fled the forest, I knew that I could never go back. The park ranger station closed down soon after, and Yellowstone National Park became a place of whispered legends and cautionary tales. Years later, I still think back to that fateful encounter with the bear and the shadowy figures in the woods. I may never know what I truly encountered that night, but I do know one thing. Yellowstone is not just a park, but a place where the line between the living and the dead is blurred, and where something beyond our comprehension lurks in the shadows. My name is Jack, and I'm a park ranger at a national park in the southwestern United States. I've seen my fair share of strange and unexplainable things in the wilderness, but nothing could have prepared me for the encounter I had with a skinwalker. It was a warm summer evening, and I was patrolling the park, making sure that everything was in order. As I made my way through the dense forest, I felt a strange sense of unease, as if I was being watched. I brushed it off as paranoia, but the feeling persisted. That's when I heard a low growl and turned around to see a large coyote staring at me with unnaturally intelligent eyes. I knew then that this was no ordinary coyote. It was a skinwalker, a shapeshifter that could take on the form of any animal it chose. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest as the skinwalker began to circle me, its eyes never leaving me. I tried to retreat, but the skinwalker was always there, always one step ahead of me. It was as if it could anticipate my every move, as if it was toying with me. As the sun began to set, the forest grew darker, and the air grew thick with an ominous presence. I could feel the skinwalker's eyes on me, watching my every move. And then, just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, the skinwalker revealed its true form. It stood before me, a towering figure with twisted limbs and glowing eyes. Its skin was mottled and gray, as if it was made of stone. I knew then that I was in grave danger. The skinwalker was no longer toying with me. It was hunting me. I tried to run, but it was no use. The skinwalker was always there, lurking just beyond the tree line waiting for me. As the night wore on, I grew more and more tired, my legs heavy and my lungs burning. But the skinwalker was relentless, never giving up the chase. It was as if it was feeding off my fear and exhaustion, growing stronger with each passing moment. Just when I thought it was the end, I stumbled upon a small cabin in the woods. I bolted inside, locking the door behind me. But the skinwalker was not deterred. It began to scratch and claw at the door, its growls filling the cabin. I knew then that I was trapped, with no way out. The skinwalker was going to get me, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. But just when I thought it was over, the skinwalker suddenly stopped. Its growls faded away, and it disappeared into the night. I was left alone in the dark cabin, shaking and confused. As I made my way back to the park ranger station, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had encountered something beyond my comprehension. The more I thought about it, the more convinced I became that the skinwalker was not just an animal, but something more. Over the next few weeks, strange things began to happen in the park. Visitors reported seeing shadowy figures lurking in the woods, and some claimed to hear strange voices whispering in the wind. But it wasn't until years later, when I retired from the park service, that I finally understood the true nature of the skinwalker. It was not just a shapeshifter, but a being from another dimension, a creature that could cross between worlds with ease. And I knew then that I had been lucky to escape with my life. The skinwalker was a force to be reckoned with, a being that could bring even the bravest park ranger to their knees. I am a park ranger in a remote national park in the northern woods. I have seen a lot of strange things in my time here, but nothing quite like what I encountered one night while on patrol. It was a chilly evening in early spring, and I was making my rounds through the forest. The sun had set, and the moon cast an eerie glow over the trees. I had heard rumors of strange creatures lurking in the woods, but I never believed them, until now. As I was walking, I heard the sound of twigs snapping and leaves rustling behind me. I turned around but saw nothing. I felt a chill run down my spine and my heart started to race. I thought it was just my imagination playing tricks on me, but then I heard it again. This time the sound was closer, and I could hear a low growling noise. I drew my flashlight and shone it in the direction of the noise. I gasped in shock as I saw a large, hairy creature standing on two legs, staring right back at me with glowing eyes. It was a dogman, a creature that I had only heard of in stories. But this was no legend. It was real, and it was right in front of me. It stood at least 7 feet tall, with sharp teeth and claws that glinted in the moonlight. I took a step back, and the creature snarled at me, baring its teeth. I knew then that I had to get out of there, and fast. I turned and ran as fast as I could, hearing the dogman's heavy footsteps behind me. I could hear its breath on the back of my neck, and I knew that it was getting closer. I didn't dare turn around, but I could feel its presence looming behind me. Suddenly, I tripped on a root and fell to the ground. The dogman was right on top of me, and I could feel its hot breath on my face. I was sure that it was going to attack me, but then it stopped. The creature just stared at me for a moment, before turning around and disappearing into the woods. I was left there, shaken and bewildered, wondering what had just happened. Over the next few weeks, I heard more reports of dogman sightings in the area. Visitors would come to me, telling me of the creature they saw lurking in the woods, always watching them. But I knew better than to go looking for it again. I had seen enough to know that the dogman was not something to be trifled with. It was a being of immense power and danger, and I was lucky to have escaped with my life. I never forgot that night, and I never stopped wondering what the dogman was and where it came from. Some say it was a result of a government experiment gone wrong, while others believe it to be a creature from another dimension. Whatever the truth may be, one thing is certain: the dogman is still out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for its next victim, and I pray that I am never unlucky enough to cross its path again. The memory of that night still haunts me to this day. Every time I venture into the woods, I can't help but wonder if the dogman is watching me, waiting to strike. I have heard stories of people disappearing in the woods, and I can't help but wonder if the dogman is responsible for their disappearances. The thought sends shivers down my spine, and I am always on high alert whenever I am in the park. I have shared my story with other rangers, but they just shake their heads and dismiss it as a tall tale. But I know what I saw, and I know that the Dogman is real. I have come to realize that the woods are full of mysteries, and there are things that we will never fully understand. It's important to respect the power and danger of nature, and to always be aware of the creatures that lurk in the shadows. As a park ranger, it is my duty to protect and preserve the park and its inhabitants. But when it comes to the Dogman, I know that I am outmatched. All I can do is hope that it never decides to come after me again. But until then, I will continue to patrol the woods, always keeping one eye on the shadows and the other on the trail ahead. The Dogman may be out there, but I won't let it stop me from doing my job.